Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is already September 5th, level 1 recording for lesson 12. So this is all about sun gazing and the energetic anatomy and physical anatomy regarding how to eat the sun. And eating the sun is a vital tool in the tool belt for being able to achieve higher levels of consciousness. And I'm just moving my thing so that it doesn't shake so much. Sorry that hold on, let me get situated here. Thank you for your patience. And also, you need to see, someone is already perfectly installed, ready for today's presentation. Dog Boss is here. Your pineal gland. Everybody talks all about the pineal gland and what is it? This is kind of like last week when I did the presentation about flower of life and the connection between items that are made that are based on the number 6 as opposed to the number 8, and how the flower of life is basically a slice or a portion of reality. There's a lot of teachings that are all about the pineal gland, so its existence is not a secret. However, and I apologize if my microphone is not so great and if my voice isn't as good at sounding as clear as it usually is. I'm having microphone issues, so I'm just using the regular computer stuff. There's much more going on with what the pineal gland is and what it does than what is broadly known about. So let's get into the specifics of what it is and become totally empowered beings, because this has everything to do with how do you get enough energy? Hold on. In order to dance like a flying rainbow lasagna, I'm preparing to give a workshop on this at an upcoming conference. How do you dance like a flying rainbow lasagna? That's like saying, how do you drive across the country? One of the big things is making sure your vehicle is in tip-top shape and having enough gas in your car to make your car go. Or how does an electron make that fateful leap from one shell of excitation to the next shell of excitation? As I go to my whiteboard to tell you all about it. Oh, hold on one second. I think I might be hearing someone unmuted out there. If I am, well, it's all okay. All is well. I'll just request that everybody mute themselves so that the recording doesn't have feedback on it. This is the nucleus of an atom. Not a very perfect nucleus. And this is the first electron shell. It's a level of excitation or a level of energy. It's actually not just a line, it's a whole sphere, but I'm not drawing in the entire, all of the lines of latitude and longitude. You can mentally envision it as a sphere. And there are many nested shells. It's very hard to draw with this pen, so just bear with me. It doesn't always work there we go. There are many nested shells to the structure of an atom. And an electron, if this little red X is the electron, in order for it to get to the next level of excitation, where I just drew that little circle, it has to make a leap. This is known as the quantum leap because it has to go all the way from here to all the way over here in one jump. It doesn't get to go step and a half, step and 3/4. I'm almost there. I'm most of the way there. Now I'm really there. It only can go all the way there. So what it has to do is get really excited. This little red dot gets super energized, and then it has enough energy to jump, boom, and go to its next level of excitation. How does it get all of that energy? This is what we're talking about here. So in terms of us becoming a higher dimensional version of what we are, I often use this analogy, not to be repetitive or annoying. You're like a little ant or crawling insect that crawls on the flat surface of a leaf, on the flat surface of time. And in order to become fully empowered or become your adult state, you're like, wait a minute, Aurora, I'm an adult. I'm like 53 years old or whatever, 72 years old. We are technically still in our pupal stage, our pupal format. How there's like the egg and then the pupa and the chrysalis, and then there's the adult winged form. We are still learning not to be rather stuck to the surface of time. When we can jump off the surface of time and fly to whenever we want, or fold the surface of time to us and have the nonlinear experience of, experiencing time essentially in a different, more creative format, then we can be the adult winged format. So we're working on that metamorphosis right now. So this is not something where you have to get into an apparatus, like a car or a spaceship or something like that. You are the vehicle. You are transforming on a genetic and cellular level. And in order to perform this transformation, where do you get the energy from? And I'm being silly and everything like that. But the answer is, I'm pointing out my window, which you can see is very brightly lit over there. You get it from the sun. Get it from the sun. So let's talk all about where we get our energy from at this moment. So the human body is as it is right now, is the domesticated body. Just like Cheeky. Cheeky's awesome. There's nothing bad with being domesticated. Look, Cheeky's super awesome. We're all super awesome. However, Cheeky is not a wolf. But I joke sometimes that she's an 8-pound wolf. But she's not a wolf. She sleeps in a dog bed, and I give her flea medicine so that she doesn't have fleas, and, give her chew toys to keep her teeth clean. And, I take care of her. And that is not what wolves do. And she sleeps in my bed. Wolves are like, I don't need to sleep in your bed, you silly human. I don't need flea treatments. I can take care of myself. I run around and I eat whatever I want, and I sleep wherever I want, and I poop wherever I want, and I do what I want. I'm a wild and domesticated being. And we as humans are, again, the domesticated format of what we would be if we had our higher faculties, which includes your heart, your capacity to make this love tone, and your throat, which is communication, and your eye of insight right in here, we'll get into that anatomy, and your connection to the divine. All of those things stack up together, these different layers of being, in order to make the higher faculties. Humanity hasn't had our higher faculties perfectly in alignment or awakened or attuned or functioning for about the past 10 or 20,000 years. Been the domesticated version. So it is essentially the capacity to perceive time, to perceive in a higher dimensional state, and manipulate time. But that makes us true adults and able to take care of ourselves. We don't need flea baths. We don't need, Cheeky hates baths. We don't need, whatever, to have chew toys. We have a different and more expanded and free experience of moving through time, or a different definition of what it is to be in time. How do we get back to that wild, undomesticated format? Because we're not actually supposed to be experiencing this. We're not supposed to have to live in houses and have electrons. Here's my electrons flowing in a wire, and my lamp and my light bulb over here. Like, no, that's not what we're supposed to do. So I talk about this a lot, and part of it is planting seeds. Just like when we were little tiny children, someone came along and taught us about death. And said death is inevitable. Level 2 is going to be all that. No, death is not inevitable. Ascension is actually inevitable. Or transformation into your eternal state is actually inevitable. But I'm planting the seeds of the idea that we do not actually need an intermediary between ourselves and the sun or the stellar network in order to get all of the food, nutrients, vital life force energy, and light or information. Every time I say light, you can also think like information, just like light travels through a fiber optics cable. All of those things are what we need to make that jump from one electron shell to the next electron shell, from one level of perception and experience in one particular dimension to the next level of experience and perception, the next highest dimension. How do we do that jump? One of the first things is learn to eat sunlight. So I talk about this all the time in a funny and cute way, that we are meant to not need clank metal spaceships or to poop in a space diaper to get off the surface of our planet. So we definitely are not meant to have to grind up all of our food into toothpaste tubes. Like, here's a toothpaste tube full of spinach. That's what you'll be eating on your journey as you fly through vast distances of interstellar space. Sounds yum, right? Like, here's chocolate cake in a tube. Like, no, that's not what we're supposed to have to do. What we are supposed to do is reawaken our innate higher capacities that have been dormant for many, many thousands of years, all of what is known as recorded human history, and be able to tune in directly to the stellar network in order to get all of our nutrition. So first, what I'm going to teach you about is your actual anatomy, and I'm also teaching you about thought programs that are essentially limitations and how to transcend those limitations to say, hey, how can we actually do this? So the first is, like, death is a thought program or a software program, even though I'm not a transhumanist and you're all much, much more than just, a series of whatever software running in hardware. You're more than wetware, because you're innovative and you're wonderful jazz musicians of reality. However, we have been taught that there are certain limitations, like you must eat this many calories in order to expend this many calories. There are some people who have taught us along the way that that is not absolutely truthful. There are some unnamed or anonymous, saints and mystics and yogis from the Far East who have practiced sun gazing. And there's, so you necessarily know, there's not a book written about some of them. And often they're quite unassuming people who have reached these amazing levels of self-development. They're not necessarily based in their ego, so they do not necessarily go around saying, I am so great, I eat sunlight, like they're just doing their thing. And there's not always someone there with a camera or whatever to document it and write a book about it. There was a woman in the 1940s in Bavaria, which is an area near Germany, or in Germany, let me drink this, Therese von Neumann. And you can look her up. She was a stigmatic, meaning that, she had sympathetic pains and sympathetic wounds that resonated with the story of the Roman Jesus being crucified. That is not so much germane to the story, but it shows you that she had very deep religious inner mental state or software program or thought structure that she was running about, she had a profound love for Christ, whom she envisioned as the embodiment Jesus. Let me drink a little bit more. So she was really, really devoted and very loving in that way. She spent many hours of her day just creating like these flower altars and things like that. They were all devotions to her conception of divinity. So again, I don't promote the worship of, Roman Jesus in the actual church context, but she was part of that. She sounds like she was a very, very pure, innocent person though. And the point that I'm bringing up is that for the last 25 years of her life, she did not eat physical food. And this was in the 1940s, so it was actually possible for this to be documented. They had photographers, they had people that followed her around, that took film and video, that were able to show that she was an actual example of, she didn't eat nothing. She didn't eat just nothing but pure light. She ate one little Eucharist wafer a day. And you can tell, like, Eucharists are very tiny. There might be a few calories in there. It's not enough to be able to sustain a person completely. The point is, Therese von Neumann believed very profoundly that once that Eucharist was blessed, it contained all of the light, all of the energy, all of the love, all the caloric energy and water that she needed in order to sustain her body. So she had her own particular religious programming, her own particular filter through which she understood the world, and she had her own flavor of the story of why she could do this. She did it very successfully for the last 25 years of her life. And there are, like I'm saying, people from the Buddhist tradition, the Hindu tradition from the Far East, who also have done similar feats where they did not require the sustenance of physical food. They were able to transform their thought structure and get enough energy directly from either divinity or the sun, sun gazing, or what is known as prana or chi, and being able to breathe it in certain ways. So there are many stories I could tell you. One is about a person who experienced profound healing by sun gazing every day. And so let's talk about what is the actual practice of sun gazing. Very, very clearly, sun gazing does not mean frying your actual retinas by staring directly at the sun. You do not have to stare directly at the sun. In fact, I love the sun. Where I used to live in Woodstock, I was thinking about this as I was going over my notes this morning. Woodstock, I'm right now in Southern California. I used to be in Woodstock, which is like way further north in terms of latitude, and also, clearly in the wintertime does not have very much sun. There, I did not have to protect myself as much from the sun as I do here. So I'm telling everyone, like, your body is fragile, your physical, cellular body, don't overexpose it to the sun, especially right now, because I'm really noticing, I recorded the lessons that are part of this teaching organization cycle 5 years ago, and I've noticed a lot of intensification of the sun. Like, it's not just that I moved someplace where it's more sunny, but there are sometimes when it's like the sun is blindingly bright. So I'm not exactly sure of the reason why, because there are many different theories of that, but just in basic practical experience, the sun will fry you if you do not protect yourself effectively. So yeah, I do things like jojoba oil, frankincense, and there are other natural skin oils. You don't have to use, the nano titanium dioxide and other stuff like that that's in commercial sunscreen. So put on sun protectant, and also everyone in my neighborhood watches me when I go out for long walks with Chief, because we do big circuits around, so it's many hours outside. I have a big giant hat. I wear a big giant rainbow hat. So yes, and I have contact lenses that have UV protectant, so protect your eyes, wear a hat, protect your skin. I'm just giving you, like, if you were going to go swimming in the ocean, I would tell you, hey, like, here's all the safety stuff you need to know about going in the ocean. If we're going to do sun gazing, we'll start off with how to do this safely. So yes, even when I was in Woodstock, what I would do is sun gaze either through filtered trees. We had a very dense leaf canopy over my backyard, or if I was inside, using the edge of a curtain to kind of filter things out, or using the brim of my hat to kind of like shade it so that it wasn't going directly in my eye. Because the whole point is, This is not just about perceiving photons through your physical eyeballs. You can sun gaze with your eyelids completely closed. This is not about your physical eyeballs. This is about your inner eye, and we're going to get into what is the pineal gland and what is that anatomy. We are eating physical light and also non-physical light, or the pure consciousness that is contained within light. So when you eat an apple, I don't have an apple here, I have my wonderful green juice though, but when you eat fruits and vegetables or something like that, when you eat animal ate fruits and vegetables, and that's why it's in existence, you're eating solidified light, and you're also eating thought patterns. This is big. It's two things. So there was a rapport between the sun and the vegetables and fruits that made my juice. You know, if it was an apple tree or whatever, all year long, the sun had a conversation back and forth between what photons that were being emitted from the sun and the actual apple tree that caught those photons and took that energy and transformed it into solid matter, which, by the way, was a miracle that happens. It's like amazing that happens. It doesn't just turn it into random stuff, turns it into very specific, highly organized stuff. So it takes that energy, it turns it into matter, and it also contains consciousness. Like they had a conversation for a whole year about what was going to go into those apples or those fruits or those leaves. And then at the end of it, we are able to come along and say, hey, I'm going to eat that apple. When you're eating it, you're not just liberating that stored energy, those photons that have been slowed down and condensed down into matter. You're also receiving consciousness. You are receiving the same consciousness as the sun was telling a story to the tree, or as the tree was having a conversation with the sun. You're eating that. So yes, there is more consciousness, more vital life energy in fruits and vegetables, and even animals that are wild outside, that is opposed to things that are grown hydroponically or things that are farmed in some way, that where they are limited in their access to natural life or in their access to the challenges of having to grow in a natural world. Like there are pests and droughts and other things like that mean that an intelligent plant or animal must respond to those limitations. If you're just in a feedlot or in a hydroponic farm, then you do not have to respond to those limitations. There's less consciousness. The musicians didn't have to become as adept in those circumstances because they were farmed in particular ways. So that's why it's better, like if you can, to eat things that are as least distorted as possible, because they have the most amount of light and consciousness in there, so that you can refine that out into pure awareness and use that as the light for your journey. So in order to do a maneuver like the flying rainbow lasagna, or even the Merkaba, or some of these other activities of the higher faculties, the psychic realm, it takes a lot of energy. It takes so much energy that it takes more energy than you can get if you put just food in your tummy, and that's the only source of where your energy is coming from. Like if you're just running on tummy energy, then even if you ate 12 sticks of butter a day, that's not going to be enough to be able to power this type of project. So in order to reach these higher levels of functioning in our bodies, we have to become adept at tuning in directly to the sun. I eat both things. Clearly, I'm showing you, like here, I'm drinking my juice. I'm not like a light eater that eats only light. Although in great comedy, when I first came here as Aurora, because I'm a light eater where I come from, I tried to just be a light eater here. I didn't understand for the first few weeks that I was in a human body. I'm like, okay, like I'm doing my sun gazing. I'm like, why do I not feel energized enough? Why is my body so small? Like, why is it so difficult to do things? I didn't understand I needed to eat food also in this place. So then I started to learn, like, oh, okay, food is necessary. Then I had to learn all about what's in food and what is the right type of food, all sorts of very, very funny stories about how when I was first here and I did not know which nutrients went with which, and I had to learn by trial and error, like what you're supposed to drink and eat at what time of day. So yeah, food is a whole wonderful odyssey. So I'm telling you this in order to make it very clear. I eat physical food in order to sustain my physical cellular body, clearly, and I eat a lot of it. Like I know that I'm slender, however, I will tell you I eat as many calories as I can possibly fill the tummy with tummy power. And that's not enough to do the other activities that are, we would call them magical, we would call them multidimensional, we would call them higher dimensional acrobatics of your DNA and of your consciousness that require more energy. To do that jump from one level of the electron shell to the next level of excitation, it requires light energy. So I've been sun gazing since I first came here, and it's just like a very normal, natural thing for me. So when I started to figure out how am I going to teach this to other people, I had to kind of just like doing lasagna, stop and figure out step by step what I'm actually doing. So in the recorded lessons, I have a whole teaching about this, and I have a specific video that I recorded way back in Woodstock 5 years ago of me sitting in my backyard and actually doing it. And I'll show you how I do it here. First, what I need to do is show you on the share screen. Go to this, go to this. First, let's do some energetic anatomy. And let me move my face over here to the side. Good. And now move my fancy pictures into the middle where you can see. Okay. So first of all, let's talk about what is the pineal gland. Pineal gland is a structure that is deep within the two hemispheres of the brain. So, and I'll draw it out for you. Let's move this to place. There we go. I'm working with one hand because one hand is holding up Princess Cheeky so that she can be nice and comfortable down here. She's like, doesn't want to slide off. Her pants are kind of like satiny. She's like going to slide off. Okay. Like here is one side of your brain, one hemisphere of your brain, and here's the other hemisphere of your brain. And in between those two hemispheres, there's these central structures in here where I'm making this big giant blue dot that include many different structures, many different glands, many different endocrine structures. I think it is called the limbic system, that there's different types of cells that are in that area of your body beyond the mere neurons that are involved in thinking and conscious thought. A lot of it has to do with feelings, and a lot of it has to do with producing hormones. So in that area of your brain, we have a little tiny gland that is called the pineal gland. I'm going to draw it over here so that you can kind of see it better, and then I'll show you internally where it is structured. So it is basically like a windowless eyeball. So this is the pineal gland over here, this bulbous kind of area, and it's actually shaped like a pine cone. That's why it's called pineal. My pen does not work as perfectly as I would like it to, so I cannot draw every single perfect little aspect of it, but you understand it's got the same geometry to it as that a pine cone does. It has these two branching nerve structures that come off of it that I just highlighted there, and it is found, so this is physical eyeball 1, physical eyeball 2. It is located internally behind those eyeballs in the deep interior of the skull, where I'm making that little blue dot right there. And this is a vestigial organ that goes back to, in terms of evolutionary biology, reptiles. Reptiles have, on top of their head, kind of right up here in their anatomy, a special, it looks almost like a little solar cell, a little scale, like there's scales on the outside of their skin, through which they perceive light, and it has to do with their circadian rhythm. So your circadian rhythm is your waking and sleeping cycle, wake-sleep cycle, and it has to do with sensing light. So we have this in our brain as a vestigial trace, as something that is like a reverberation of the influence of that reptilian structure on our own brain and on our own perception. The pineal gland relates to perception of light and circadian rhythm in humans. Pineal gland emits two main hormones. Pardon me if my words are not coming perfectly today. One of them is melanin, and one of them is melatonin. So melanin over here, that is what our skin produces when we are exposed to light. Oh, so P.S., spoiler alert, and just throw this off very casually, we are all light eaters already. That we ingest light through our skin and also through our eyes. And when we are exposed to light, we synthesize it through a complex chemical process that helps in bone development and basically produces vitamin D. And blah, blah. Most of our world right now is deficient in vitamin D because mostly everybody wears super covered up clothing, especially if you live where it's cold, where you're going to be cold in the wintertime if you walk around like this wearing a little tank top. And also most people have an indoor lifestyle. So there are many, many different diseases that come from not having enough vitamin D. If you don't get any vitamin D, you get rickets, which is bone malformation and severe weakness and pain in your bones. But if you just don't get enough vitamin D and you're like above rickets but still below total health and vitality, you are more vulnerable and susceptible to infectious diseases like what is called either colds and the flu and things like that, but also cancer and other systemic diseases that arise. So not getting enough vitamin D has a huge impact on the entire structure of the body. So when we're exposed to the sun, we naturally produce this hormone called melanin that makes the skin darken. And yes, some people are naturally born with higher levels of melanin in their body than others. Most people, except for albinos, have no melanin production in their body, which is why they are so vulnerable to the sun. And the other hormone that is created that I'm highlighting over here sounds similar, but it's different. It's called melatonin, and it has similar effects in that it is produced in conjunction to being exposed to the sun. But melatonin has to do with human wake-sleep cycle. And I caution greatly against taking melatonin supplements. I know that that is kind of like a health food store fad, that some people take it as a way to induce sleep or get better, more restful sleep. But I also know that that can cause biological changes, like it is not a beneficial thing to do. And it can cause changes to the actual gland that is supposed to be emitting that naturally. So yes, I huge cautions against taking the supplement known as melatonin. I do not recommend it. Hold on a minute. I know someone who took it consistently, and she said that it closed down her inner eye, closed down her inner vision, made it more difficult for her to do things like use her inner psychic vision, do astral travel, do all those things that we're supposed to do. Oh, so yes, there are many things. Oh my goodness. Now we'll get into this. I know I'm jumping around a lot. Many, many things that reduce and harm and obscure the healthy functioning of the pineal gland. So melatonin is one of them. Many, many chemicals reduce it, including fluoride. This is not news to anyone who's in this class. It's just confirmation of something that you probably already deeply, deeply know. Excessive fluoride, when you are exposed to it, it gets stored in your body. It gets stored one of the places it gets stored is in your pineal gland. It causes what is known as calcification. But what's really going on is, I'm just going to draw, there are little tiny dots inside of the pineal gland that are microcrystals. They're so small that they might only be made up of a couple of atoms. And their function is, just like inside of an old-fashioned radio, this is like literally from, maybe 100 years ago, how old radios used to work. There were vacuum tubes and little tiny crystals, and the little tiny crystals caught the vibrations, the emissions that are radio signals, and then amplified them so you could hear them as voices or music. Those little tiny crystals that are inside of our pineal gland are like our radio receivers. And we are also broadcasters, because your pineal gland is also like the paintbrush with which we use to paint reality, or like the projector of reality. But right now, let's just focus on it as a receptor. If you ingest too much fluoride or certain other chemicals, Prozac is one of them, what it does is stops those little tiny microcrystals from vibrating effectively inside of the apparatus known as your pineal gland. And that's what people say, it is calcification of the pineal gland. It's just say that it is like non-functioning. It becomes less functional, it becomes dormant. All of that is intentional, and it means that it is more difficult to perceive time, perceive higher dimensional reality, and also there's much less motivation. One of the classic hallmarks of fluoride poisoning or fluoride toxicity is lowered energy, lowered vitality, and more passivity. It's why it was put into POW camps, like put that stuff in the water, keep everybody low and zombified, that way they won't fight back. And yes, it is put into most municipal water supplies in the United States. Any city that's above, I think, 30,000 in inhabitants, by law, is fluoridated, and that's why I've chosen specifically not to live in any of those places. And also, I drink distilled water, and if you are concerned about not getting enough calcium and other minerals by drinking distilled water, you do have to worry about that. Take calcium supplements, and I eat eggshells as calcium supplements. Yes, fluoride is also ingested if you have fluoridated water, not just through drinking water, but through soaking in a tub, or cooking your food in it, or having a shower. So even if you only drink bottled water, if you live in a large municipality that's fluoridated, you're being exposed to fluoride, and it's slowly encroaching in your system, and it does not have beneficial effects on the teeth and bones, as science justifies its existence in the water system. It does not. It does not actually help you out in any way. It is something to be very much avoided. And I'm sure that's obvious to anyone who's in this class. I'm just iterating that very clearly. And thank you for understanding that it's very hot and I get very thirsty here. Okay, pineal gland. So what we're dealing with in this time and place is many people do not have healthy pineal glands. due to diet, due to environmental toxicity, all of the Wi-Fi, yes, I call it fry, not just fi, all the Wi-Fi signals, all of that, like this is literally a little radio antenna that is inside of your brain. And it picks up signals and it emits signals. So yeah, all the 5G, all of the Wi-Fi, all that stuff is all affecting it. I'll do a very brief anecdote on my time when I was in Woodstock. So I lived in Woodstock like 2003, 2004. That was before there were any cell phone towers in that area, and having a cell phone for the regular person was still something of a treat, or something that was a bit exotic or luxurious or something like that. Not everybody had them at that time. Everybody still had regular landlines, and there was no receptivity in Woodstock. And we used to laugh when we'd see visitors come from the city, and they're like looking at their phone, holding up to their ear, kind of looking up at the sky, being like, "Hey, what's going on?" And we'd laugh at them like it doesn't work around here. And yeah, and in that, my experience of being in Woodstock at that time, I found that instead of having to call people on the physical phone to set up a meeting, if I wanted to meet with someone or find my friend or whatever, it was much more commonplace to be like, I'm going to just kind of feel for my friend. I'm going to call out, like, you know, with my mental, invitation, and be like, hey, you know, are you out there? Where are you? I'm looking for you. And in my experiences living in Woodstock at that time, sometimes it would be like you go out looking for your friend and you have all these wonderful synchronistic meetings that blah, 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 lead to the next thing. And then you find your friend at the swimming hole, you find your friend at this other hangout spot. And when the cell phone tower went up in Woodstock, kind of at the end of 2005, that synchronistic way of approaching thought and communication and socialization dried up. I noticed almost instantaneously, as soon as cell phone reception came in, it wasn't just that we now had the convenience to be able to say, I will call up my friend and say, hey, where are you today? Let's meet. Let's go, blah, blah, blah. It was the sense that we could no longer do it directly mind to mind or through being connected to the cosmos and have synchronicities lead us where we need to go, that now it was necessary to use technology because that had been obscured. None of that is by accident. That's just my little anecdote. That's not like anything written in a scientific white paper. I don't know if that could be investigated on that level. But I'll just tell you from my personal experience, I noticed as soon as they installed a functional cell phone tower that covered that area of that little town, that the regular Psychic Friends network, synchronicities, got blocked out. So that's because we have this little tiny radio deep within our anatomy that is limited. Let me just hold on a minute. I got to ask everybody to mute on up because I'm hearing something in the background. I love you, but I have to mute you. Hold on a minute. Wait, go back to this thing. Okay. Do this. We're muted. We're cool. We're good. Go back to my little picture too. I'm talking all about pineal gland. That is the physical expression of this area of your anatomy. But then there is the non-physical expression of this area of your anatomy. So the way that I can say this is just like in a movie theater, you might have the actual movie projector. That I don't know if they still exist or whatever, but in a movie, you know, you've got the reel-to-reel with the tapes inside of it that projects and sends out the light. And then far away, you've got the movie screen. That is the image of reality where all the characters are doing their thing. Pineal gland is analogous to the actual movie projector. And what we are experiencing in terms of thought and reality creation is analogous to the movie that's projected, the images that you see on the screen. So over here, what you're looking at are these energy fields. There we go. I'm making one green mark over there in that zone, and then same green mark over there in that zone. So I've drawn the same thing in two different pictures here. That's analogous to what's projected on the screen. When you die, they can dissect your head and cut your brain apart and find the tiny little pineal gland inside of there and say, the movie projector exists. But if the movie projector is no longer running, the people dissecting your cadaver cannot see this, the energy field, the things that you actually projected with your mind and your consciousness and your perception when you were alive and functional. So it's just like saying, you know, that science doesn't really effectively investigate DNA when it's actually alive and moving in the actual cell. It kills the DNA and chops it up into bits and then looks at those, you know, bits in exceeding detail, but that's not what we're really supposed to be doing. So there's limitations. So that's one part of the limitation. For these secret societies, these occult societies that have known about the existence of the pineal gland for a very long amount of time. And they might say, oh, it's all about the pineal gland and it's all about the physical structure. And I'm trying to tell everyone, the physical structure matters. What really matters is your non-physical structure, the energy field that is created as a byproduct or an end result of the healthy functioning of this actual physical feature of your body. Because it's that energy field that we use to connect directly to the sun and the stellar network. So I've said this many times, your attention. Attention comes from Greek attenuos. I write it out again. Attenuos, meaning to reach out. And we use this kind of like an elephant's trunk or a tendril or, a very long tube that we use from our inner vision, your inner perception, your non-physical sight, to be able to connect with whatever you wish to connect with. You can connect with a person, an animal, a plant, a microbe, an atom, a place, a concept, another realm, another planet, and literally whatever you are touching with this, it's like a sensor. Whatever you're touching with it, you learn about directly and even become and tend to identify with. So people might be most familiar with this mind state after having taken a psychedelic. Like I think there are stories, Aldous Huxley wrote about this when he had first experienced some psychedelic, and he looked at a flower and he touched it so profoundly that he became the flower, and he learned all about being what a flower is by touching that. So a big part of having a healthy, awakened inner eye is changes in identity. If I'm touching on a flower and I feel if I not only receive information about that flower, but I feel that I am it, or if I'm touching a tree, or if I'm touching a dog, or if I'm touching another person, then we begin to transform our sense of identity. And if I bring up this picture over here, can I go to this right now? I can't go to this right now. Let me stop for a moment, bring up another picture. Squinting and scrolling, sorry, I'm trying to do this in a really smooth way, but I want to get to this picture over here. Wait, hold on. This is the one. And now I have to go back to screen share. Oh, bear with me, everyone. Okay, back to screen share. This one. This little sketch. This is all about that. You can see that there are many, many human figures that are clustered around that central convergence point inside of the person, inside of the brain. That when you have an activated pineal gland, you become telepathic and you become connected to many other beings. And that your sense of identity might change and shift because you are connected to all of these other beings, that you're not only learning about them, like if you look at them through a telescope, through a camera, like we're going to take a picture of you and learn about not just a surface learning like that, whatever you're touching with your attention, you are attenuating to, you are identifying it, you're learning about it, you're becoming it. So we have a radically transformed experience of society when we are able to connect on that level and in terms of taking personal responsibility. So all of that, those are the non-physical projections or actions of having a pineal gland. It's also the seat of your imagination. So that little pineal gland, like if I'm holding up my hand, it's like this, and this is the nerve that comes off of it. It has all the same features, I should draw this out, all the same features of an actual eyeball, but it does not have a lens. So if this is, I need a better color. You can actually see. If this is a huge exaggerated pineal gland, right, with those two little nerves that come kind of off of it at the back. Ordinarily, you'd have an aperture up here at the front, and then you'd have the retina back here at the back. But in the pineal gland, you do not have an aperture. Closed. You do not have an entry for light to come inside of it. There's no way for light to come inside of there. So you have little tiny microcrystals, and you have retina, like retina cells, receptor cells, and you have nerves, but no way for light to get inside of there. And it's also deep inside the interior structure of your brain. So how do the retina or receptor cells get stimulated inside of your pineal gland? And the answer is basically through thought, through neural impulses, through, the non-physical or semi-physical neural impulses that travel to stimulate that area of your brain. So we are familiar with photons hitting our eye here, and then that nerve impulse travels along your optic nerve to your brain, and you perceive that you're eating light all the time. You're eating it right now. You're eating it while you're staring at the screen. What is happening with your pineal gland is that you do not have photons directly stimulating your pineal gland. What you have is thought. And now I have to talk about satanic technology and dark magic. And when I say satanic, everyone in this class, you already know me at this point. I don't have to be so distinct, but for someone who's watching this video who doesn't know, I'm not talking about anything biblical. I'm talking about a extraterrestrial set of species, group of species that use technology. They use planet spaceships. And let me drink some water. They have the capacity to project stuff into your pineal gland. Like imagine if you've got a magic ray gun. Here's my magic ray gun. And I can zap people, and I can zap your pineal gland, and I can make it zap. Now you're thinking of purple pancakes. Zap. Now you're thinking of My Little Pony. Zap. Now you're thinking of the planet Pluto. I'm going through different P's. If I have the magical zapper, like the remote control on the TV, I can zap whatever image I want into your brain, into your mind, into your perception. And this is really crucial because, again, I don't know where my face went dark, so all of a sudden here's more light on my face. Our imagination, where we do this envisionment. Anytime you're doing an envisionment, like you're envisioning the flying rainbow lasagna, you are doing that utilizing the apparatus of your pineal gland. And anytime you're doing the Merkaba, you're also doing that utilizing the apparatus of your pineal gland. Anytime you're going to play a song, first you hear it internally. That's how I do my songs. First I hear it internally, then I make it go to my fingertips and I play it. It first arises internally in your pineal glands. This is not just something, a silent movie. It's not just the silent movie from the 1920s. It is auditory, things we see and things we hear. So now you start to understand, how can they hijack your dreams? And when I say they, I'm talking about these satanic space races. You know, if you're ever in a dream, you're like having a good dream and everything is going great, and then all of a sudden they'll come up with something that makes you feel anxious, like show you a picture of your dead loved one, or, you know, someone you love has been mutilated or something like that, to give you that feeling of horror and anxiety. They're projecting that. They zap you with the picture. I zap you in your pineal gland with a picture of something that I know will make you emit that level of shock or, you know, rage or anxiety. And it's basically like pushing people's buttons. And they can even calibrate. They're like, I'm going to push this button. Imagine a horrible white-coated scientist, you know, experimenting in an evil way with, you know, like little burning ants underneath a microscope, that type of a thing. It's like, I will stimulate the subject over here and see the response. I will stimulate the subject over here and see the response. So yeah, then they can map. If I do this, this happens. If I do this, this happens, in order to get the responses that they want. Understanding all of this, and this is like, I'm not making fun of anyone by saying this, but understanding all of this, you now all have to understand how outclassed humanity has been in terms of being mind controlled. And people that think they have been on certain types of experiences, either they think they've been abducted by UFOs, or they think that they have gone to far distant worlds, or they think that they have gone into a secret space program. A lot of these are, I call them flights of fancy. They're not actual experiences. They are zaps. They're zapped in your pineal gland by technology using space race that is only moderately more sophisticated than our present level of society on planet Earth. They are not better. They are not more loving. They are not more divine or more adept. They have simply learned how to control human behavior by putting the right imagery, zapping the right imagery into your pineal gland. This is part of the hack of the human operating system. So the hack is not just at the level of yellow with your daily human waking intellect, where you might hear words that are intrusive thoughts and have your behavior controlled in that way. The hack is also a hack of the ability to imagine, the ability to envision, and dreaming. When we dream, I should make this very clear. Oh my goodness, I should make this clear. When you're dreaming, the projection of your mind, of your perception of what you're experiencing internally, because you're not, when you're dreaming, your eyes are closed, you are not seeing your bedroom around you. You're seeing the world that you're creating internally with your mind. That is a projection from your pineal gland. And essentially it is a projection of your inner eye, your higher vision. That is hijacked or distorted or transformed in a negative way by these users of satanic technology, drinking water. Hey, this type of hijacking can also happen when people take LSD or other types of chemicals that artificially send more energy to the pineal gland and to the projector. Imagine if the projector is usually running like, whatever, 30 lumens worth of illumination, right? Like 30 candles worth of brightness. And then if you take something like DMT, then all of a sudden it turns that light bulb up to like 47 lumens, or, you know, whatever, 68 lumens. And all of a sudden, your pictures become brighter and your projections become sharper, and they can, you know, contain more stuff. And also, then you can be zapped even more. You can zap you even more with more false imagery, with more false stuff. So everybody's got to be super skeptical of anything that they've perceived in dreaming, of anything that they've perceived while under the artificial amplification of the functioning of the pineal gland by taking something like DMT. Oh, P.S. I forgot to tell you. I was telling you that pineal gland emits melanin. It emits melatonin. I forgot the last thing to tell you is that it also emits DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which is the molecular representation of how to get in and out of reality, or how to get in and out of your body. So DMT is produced naturally by this gland whenever we enter this body. Hey, when do you enter your body, everyone, mostly who's not a walk-in? When you're in your mommy's tummy. Yes, when you're gestating in the womb, when you get to a certain level of complexity in the formation of the fetus, that it can have a pineal gland, which can produce DMT, that is when consciousness can actually come from the abstract world and begin to inhabit the actual physical presence of this body. And when do you leave your body? Well, you leave your body, you know, if you're able to control yourself and cultivate yourself and astrally project. And also, when you die, when you hit the membrane of death, you are immediately flooded with tons and tons of DMT that then makes you lose your body. So leave your body, rather. When people ingest DMT in order to have a psychedelic or visionary experience, what they're doing is doing something like, you know, stepping partway out of their body, like they're not fully dead. You're not dead. You're only mostly dead. I'm making a joke. You need that miracle pill from the Princess Bride. No, you're not dead. You are experiencing that lower astral realm. Like when you die, you are completely free and untethered from your body, and you're in the membrane of death. And so when you take DMT, what you're doing is experiencing that, when I say lower, like let's say the most easily accessible neighborhoods of the purely astral realm. And the astral realm, although it has the word astral and it relates to the stars, it's a purely mind-created realm. It's the realm of projection. It's the realm of imagination. Are we getting it? Like if someone zaps your imagination projector to project certain ideas or experiences or imagery, that is being added to the world of your imagination. They begin to control imagination. They begin to control that world. So yeah, and none of that is okay, and all of that is against cosmic law. And I've been doing a lot of work lately on the idea of where's the high court, and why is all this stuff going on that is clearly against cosmic law, and it's been going on for a very long amount of time. So high court really needs to be resolved. I know there's questions. I'm drinking more. First question from Pedro. Awesome. And thank you for participating and for your wonderful, you know, insights and the questions you ask. Pedro says, can the pineal gland, rather, be decalcified? The answer is yes, it absolutely can. The first thing in order to do that is stop ingesting the things that clog it up. Stop ingesting fluoride. Prozac is also a fluoride derivative, and people who take Prozac and also anti-anxiety medications such as Xanax, what it does is, first, those medications sometimes can flood the pineal gland with lots and lots and lots of energy to the point that it is numb and no longer receives stimulation. So there's different ways of closing it down. So basically, a lot of antidepressants and a lot of anti-anxiety medications also cloud and degrade the functioning of the pineal gland. And people do that to themselves on purpose because their moderate amounts of seeing make them feel negative emotions. If you start to see and really understand what you're perceiving inside, you're like, hey, wait, there's a family dynamic that's unhealthy that's going on here. Like this guy's been raping this guy and this has been going on. You don't want to know about that. It's depressing. Oh, grandpa's a rapist. You don't want to know about that. Take Prozac, take anxiety medication, close down that pineal gland so that you don't have to know about these very difficult topics, and you definitely don't have to change your life or whatever it is. So these are willful tools for self-disempowerment that people have been taking. So stop taking fluoride. Stop using fluoridated toothpaste. People are afraid, Aurora, if I stop brushing my teeth with fluoridated toothpaste, my teeth will fall apart and I will get many cavities, and I'm here to tell you and show you by example. No, that's not true. So yeah, not that I want everyone to copy me or whatever, but here's how I do tooth care. And I can happily say to you, I haven't used fluoride in many, many years. And so what I do is brush my teeth either with xylitol. Xylitol sounds like a chemical name, but it's actually a derivative of the sap of the birch tree. It is like maple syrup from birch trees. It is a natural sweetener that actually helps to increase the hardness of your teeth. and it is also anti-cavity and, you know, does good tooth cleaning. And you can use it on little kids too. It's safe and it's, you know, whatever, much better than fluoride for little developing infants. Fluoride toothpaste, or here's the best, brushing with coconut oil. So yeah, you still use a toothbrush because you gotta have something kind of abrasive, and you can add eucalyptus or peppermint or something like that to make the coconut oil taste a little bit more refreshing. I also add turmeric for its anti-inflammatory properties, and you would brush as you would with regular toothpaste. So do some light swishing, and then don't spit it down the sink because it will clog your pipes. Spit it into the like a waste paper basket or a little spittoon or something like that, and then rinse your mouth out. And I don't eat sugar, so that's also a big part of tooth care because sugar really does degrade, and I don't eat like pretzels and potato chips and things that are, you know, these carbohydrates, that those really do tend to eat away at the surface of the tooth. And I already told you my other thing, I eat raw eggshells, not raw eggshells, I eat sterilized eggshells from the eggs that I've already eaten. So you get pastured eggs that have high quality eggshells that they've been fed a good diet, and you boil them and then put them in the oven to sterilize them and then pound them up into little dust and eat the dust. Eat extra calcium. I eat plenty of extra calcium. So whatever is but don't do that if you're allergic to eggs, but if you're not allergic to eggs, that's a good way of getting plenty of extra good calcium. And I've been in this body for 17 years and I've never had my own cavity that is created from me. I've had to deal with the degradation of previous cavities from, you know, whatever, more than 27 years ago. So that's, you could have a very healthy mouth without having to drink fluoridated water or use fluoridated toothpaste is what I'm trying to very happily say to everyone. So don't take the Prozac, don't take the fluoride. And then the other things are, there are different substances you can take that help to remove impurities and heavy metals from the body and that cross the blood-brain barrier. So one of the ones that I use, cilantro, you know, the herb that is like green leafy herb, and chlorella. But the two of these work in conjunction. So cilantro crosses the blood-brain barrier and removes heavy metals, you know, things, aluminum and mercury and other things like that are deposited in the brain. And we're being exposed to all these crazy crappy chemtrails that really do deposit stuff in our brain. And when the heavy metals are liberated into the digestive tract, the issue is they not be reabsorbed through your small and large intestine, because then they'll just be deposited. So you must eat something with a convoluted surface area, such as chlorella, which is an excellent way of getting the molecules of metal to bind to the chlorella and pass out through your poops. You can also do the same thing with diatomaceous earth. You can also do the same thing with bentonite clay. Figure out what works best for your intestines and feels most comfortable for you. The trick is convoluted surface area. Zeolite also works. You must get food-grade zeolite and make sure that it's not contaminated in order to have the heavy metals cling to that. So all of these things. I drink distilled water. Drinking distilled water also helps to take the impurities out of the pineal gland. And you might also notice your eyes change in color, like that's a side effect of this. You know, if you have mostly brown, they might turn to more hazel, or mostly hazel might turn to more green. It definitely changes the color of your irises. But doing this can also leach out calcium from your teeth and bones, so you have to do a calcium supplement or eat eggshells or do something like that. So all of those things are effective ways of decalcifying your pineal gland. And there are different envisionments and meditations that you can also do in terms of clearing things out and regaining this is a basic anatomy of your body. This is not something that is only for special people. The occult societies would like you to think it's only for special people and you just get to be, you know, like a ditch digger, you know, pushing a wheelbarrow, and that you don't get to actually think or use your mind. That's what they would like for everyone to be like. And only certain elect noble people get to have their pineal glands activated. No, that's not what's supposed to happen. We're all supposed to have it completely activated and healthy. So Pedro goes on to say, connecting with another person and becoming them, is that one way and only you become a little like them, or is it two-way and both become a little like the other? Can attack or anxiety be induced by zap? So the first part is, yes, it's a two-way street, but it's more like if I am connecting with my inner eye to a flower, yes, I feel what it is like to be that flower. And then that flower would have to reflect back and would have to say, now I am going to connect with you and feel what it is like to be a human walking around. So it's definitely, all telepathy is that's based in love, not synthetic telepathy, is a two-way road. Now you're starting to understand the difference between natural love-based telepathy and synthetic telepathy. Synthetic has to do with either zapping people's minds, zapping people's apparatus, or drinking a magic elixir. Here, I'm drinking my ayahuasca, or I'm drinking my LSD, or I'm eating whatever magical mushrooms I need to eat. And I'm telling you guys, I'm not judgmental about any of these things. I don't take them because my own brain is too fragile to take them, and I clearly have access to these mental states without them. But it's more a question of amplifying your music, like plugging in your guitar to an amplifier so that everything is louder. And then what is the quality of the music that you are playing? That level of amplification might be more appropriate for a master, for Jimi Hendrix or someone who's really, really good. It might not be appropriate for someone who is just picking up a guitar for the first time. And then why should that person be so artificially amplified? So yes, the identification can definitely be both ways. And one of the cautions when we begin to become telepathic on this level is to maintain a strong sense of self. Once you start to touch on other beings and other people and other times and other places, in the same way, some people have a very malleable persona. And when they watch a movie or read a book, they get so into it that they're like, I felt like I was that character and it happened to me. Can't take it too far, because the truth is that would be dishonest. That would be lack of integrity. Like if you're watching a movie about someone who is a prisoner of war, or they're being tortured or something like that, and you watch it to such a profound extent that you then feel like it happened to you. No, the truth is you were sitting in your armchair, you were drinking a little cocoa, you were not actually being tortured. You cannot take that on as your own persona and something that you've actually lived through if you've only experienced it vicariously. So that is my big caution on that. I would consider it exploitive if each one of us went around to people who were having various different real dangerous experiences and thought just because a person tunes in their attention and touches on those experiences does not mean that you're actually the first person experiencer. And that is part of the challenge, the mania that many people experience when they start to raise their energy and activate this. Then they start to touch on other people's experiences and they identify with it so profoundly that they think that it's them. It can be the experience of Jesus being crucified. It can be the experience of a POW in war. It can be the experience of whatever, some great leader, whatever, Genghis Khan or something like that. You think, I'm Genghis Khan, I conquered the world. No, you didn't. You didn't. You sat quietly in your armchair in your pajamas at home and you touched on that and had those feelings. So it's really, really crucial. This is part of getting to these levels of inner maturity, to have a very clear sense of self, so that you know, this is who I am, and I've done this, this, and this, and I take responsibility for this, this, and this, because I'm not Genghis Khan. I didn't have that experience. I watched the movie on my pineal gland projector, and that's very, very different. So that I'm starting to see, as people are using synthetic molecules or zapping technology to artificially awaken and amplify their capacity to touch on other people and touch on other lives, I'm seeing all sorts of levels of false and erroneous and harmful identification, misidentification, where people are feeling like they are someone who they actually are not. And then they might even use that in order to justify their behaviors in a way that would otherwise be unjustifiable. You know, to say, if you say, hey, I'm Genghis Khan, I'm going to go down there and conquer the donut shop. No, you're not allowed to do that. You're not actually Genghis Khan, whatever those mistakes might be. Okay, the second question is really telling. Pedro is asking, can attack of anxiety be induced by zaps? The answer is yes. That a huge portion of the attacks that are happening on humanity right now, mentally and emotionally, are coming in through the pineal gland. And it's just like saying that's a vulnerability, but it doesn't mean that it should be exploited. Just like if I know that your eye is sensitive, I can shoot a laser into your eye and then I can hurt you and blind you. It's like you shouldn't try to be like, I'm going to be an invulnerable shield and nothing will get through and then you can shoot me as much as you want and you can't pass my armor. Like, no, we're supposed to have areas on our body that are super sensitive and that are highly calibrated. And it doesn't mean that anyone can come along and take pot shots at it. That is not the way the cosmos is set up. So in a very unfortunate way, humanity is being harmed almost every day or targeted almost every day through this aperture. And it comes in sometimes through religious mania. Here's another big aspect of both the pineal gland and the inner eye. That this is where we understand and interpret symbols and semiotics. Let's write the word semiotics. Going to my whiteboard, everyone. I'm waking up cheeky whenever I do this. Semiotics. So that has to do with salience and what are the things, if we look around our environment, we're in this sea of symbols and many different things that can be interpreted in many different ways. And semiotics, or being semiotically aroused, has to do with certain areas of the brain, certain of those deep brain structures that are in the area, between the two hemispheres, and how we interpret symbology. So language is a symbol structure, and music is a symbol structure, and these are things that we're used to, auditory symbol structure. But I'm also talking about, I see many, many mistakes that are being made because of the hijacking of the semiotics of the perception of a diseased or distorted pineal gland. Like if music comes on the radio, and if you are semiotically aroused, you think that song is a message for me. And if the lyrics go, "Oh, baby, baby," then you think that they're singing to me. They're talking about, I'm baby, baby. Remember where we're talking about? If you touch on something, you think it's you. Many people will touch on that song and they think that song is a personal message to me. And dependent upon what the words are in the song, it can be interpreted in many different ways. And this is, again, it's a type of mania. It's not an accurate seeing, because when we are actually submerged in this music, that's symphony of life, and we have turned off all the cell phone towers, and we can actually feel all the synchronicities. Yes, there are, like a bird might squawk, and it might be a message to you. You find a leaf on the ground, it's like, that's a message to me. Like, all of these things really are messages to you. I am not like some Grinch poo-pooing that and saying, nothing matters, nothing is significant, nothing is a message to you. No, that is not what I am. I'm actually telling you that there are many, many significant messages that are being sent to us all the time from the consciousness level of the stellar network, from the consciousness level of the planet herself. There's an amazing complex symphony that's being played here, and we are supposed to listen, and we are supposed to receive particular messages. But our system of interpretation has been wildly skewed, so that sometimes people will perceive something and take it in completely the wrong way. Let me just do a little bit more drinking, and then I'll give you another example. This is a rather tragic example. I didn't bring it up, methamphetamine. I focused mostly on hallucinogenics as artificial amplifiers of the pineal gland, but methamphetamine also has an effect of really amping up that perception, but also at the same time causing huge levels of distortion in perception and salience, or the interpretation of semiotics, the symbol structure. That when people take meth, a lot of the time they have a distorted viewpoint and interpretation system of reality. So there was a young woman not that long ago who was under the influence of meth, and she was walking along, and one of her housemates saw her on the street and shouted something out the car window about, be sure to return your keys, meaning like your house keys. And she misinterpreted that through this distorted, semiotics of being drug-induced, as thinking that she was a special key and that she somehow had to make a personal sacrifice, and she literally gouged out her own eyeballs in some way because she thought that would save the world. Like, clearly this is very distorted thinking. It's clearly very, manic. It was based not in reality, and there's a lot of distortions there. But that's the level of hallucination. Does not merely mean that you are seeing something that doesn't exist. Like, I'm seeing a pink elephant. No, it's not like that. Hallucination can also mean misinterpretation of reality. And there are many, many people right now who aren't even ingesting meth who are experiencing a similar level of misinterpretation of reality. This is what is the challenge. This is what we're really fighting against in this. I always try not to use the language of war, but we are in a war of spiritual war, a war for your mind, a war for your independence and your freedom and your own personal expression. And this is a lot of how it has happened through the hijacking or distortion of the pineal gland, of your perception of interpreting reality. So I haven't even gotten, I'm going to extend level 1 a little bit further because I need to get into the actual practicalities of how to sun gaze, but I want to go through the rest of these. So yes, most or much of what humanity is experiencing in terms of depression, anxiety, and distortions of the mind are coming from zaps to the pineal gland, and certain drugs make that much more possible, and even many of those drugs come via prescription from doctors and are legal to take. Like I've mentioned many drugs that are not legal, but I took a lot of anti-epilepsy drugs that are the type of drugs that affect your pineal gland, and lots of people take them. Topamax is one of them. It's done as like a migraine, something to alleviate migraines, and it's horrible stuff, and it absolutely makes the pineal gland more susceptible to these type of attacks. Pedro also says, this reminds me of some news about microdosing and supposedly to increase productivity. So I can tell you there are benefits to taking hallucinogens and taking them under the right circumstances, and if you're a person that can tolerate them, yeah, microdoses of magic mushrooms, psilocybin, microdoses of LSD, like these are known to be able to help people reset from depression, reset from trauma. Like they can be used therapeutically in wonderful ways. So again, I'm not painting everything with one paintbrush and saying never use it, it's horrible, it's horrible. It's like saying anything. You just need garlic. Garlic is very, very powerful antiviral and antibacterial. You're not actually supposed to eat it all the time. You're only supposed to eat it when you are fighting a cold. So you're not supposed to put tons and tons of garlic on all of your pizza and pasta and eat that every day. Everything should be used like in the right amounts, in the right time. So again, I'm not saying you should never take mushrooms or you should never take DMT, but if you're going to do this, like do it in the right way, at the right time, and for the right reasons. Pedro says, does any chlorella work, or is one that is better, non-GMO chlorella? Yes, you must be certain that you get your chlorella from a place where it is grown and it's not going to be exposed to more toxins. So there are some places where it's grown outdoors in large vats, and you really have to be concerned about chemtrail fallout, what's in the atmosphere getting into these very, very large vats, and that might then, you are ingesting as much as you don't want to get out of your body. You know what I'm talking about? You're ingesting what you're actually trying to purge. So from a reputable source, let me just drink a little bit more. Must be organic, must be broken cell chlorella. La la la. It's a little hard to say. Must be broken cell wall chlorella, because it has a very durable 3-layered cell wall that if you just ate it in your tummy without breaking the cell wall, it would pass through your body and not actually have an impact on your nutrition. So you either have to crush it or ferment it. So I take a brand, I'm not an advertiser, but it's Mercola brand of fermented chlorella, and I find that it works very well. Give some to my little chicky dog too, because she's being exposed to chemtrail fallout too. And it doesn't hurt my tummy, but diatomaceous earth does hurt my tummy, so that's why I don't eat that. But diatomaceous earth is cheap and does the job very effectively too. Chloe says, hey, Aurora, love listening to you. Thank you, my dear, and thank you for tuning in. The question says, I've been fluoride-free for about a decade. Cool. And I sun gaze most days that are not cloudy or geoengineered. Good, wonderful. So what else do I need to do so that the gland is healthy? You're already doing all of the right things. Once you get online, being able to sun gaze is like getting up and running. It's like getting online. All of this stuff gets cleared out a lot faster. So sun gazing does a couple of things. First of all, it's like getting more money in your bank account. Imagine if you only earn $5 a day and you work very, very arduously. You're like, oh man, I'm working my ass off, and I only get $5 a day. But if you sun gaze, imagine now you are paid $500 a day for the same amount of effort. That is what, and then as you get more money in your energetic bank account, you're literally accreting light. That means to gather light around you. So ordinarily we're eating food. There's $5 worth of light that we are laboriously refining out of our food. Like my hamburger had $1 worth of light in it, and my salad had $1 worth of light and consciousness in it, and I get $5 of consciousness a day. When you tune in to the Stellar Network, you are all of a sudden able to get $500 worth of consciousness a day. And that means that, let's say, it costs $499 to touch on a flower with your mind. I want to know what's going on with the flower. I want to touch on it with my mind, but I'm only making $5 a day. That means it would take a very, very long time for you to be able to get enough energy to even be able to activate this inner telescope microscope to touch on the flower. Once you connect to the sun and the stars with this apparatus, you start getting paid. Like, oh, $500. Here's $1,000. Here's $1,500. You start to get a pretty fat, energetic bank account. That is the gas that goes in your car that is necessary for doing something like the flying rainbow lasagna. And it also becomes necessary to save your money and not to fritter it away. Because even if you get $500, like I sun gazed and I got $500 worth of stuff, Save your money. Don't spend it on something stupid. Don't spend it on a flashy wristwatch or something like that. Spend it on something really good. So that means don't spend your perception on something stupid. Like looking at something that you don't really want to look at and focusing on it in intimate detail and getting to know it on a profound level. Like, don't do that with something stupid. Do that with things that really, really matter. So you have to choose if you're going to book time on the inner telescope. What do I want to look at out there? So look at something that really, really matters. So, and I want to tell everyone, like, how does one actually do sun gazing? Just one more. Pedro is asking, is nascent iodine good for the pineal gland? I have not taken iodine, so I don't know about that. I do know that iodine in things like non-contaminated kelp definitely helps to mitigate the radiation that we are experiencing from Fukushima. I think that that is more on this area of the body in terms of thyroid and throat accumulation of the radiation that's going in there. So yes, I think there are benefits to taking the right type of iodine, and I don't know if it absolutely is related to pineal gland, but really, really good question. Practicalities. How do we actually do the sun gazing? So I know my little dog is on my lap, so I'm not going to actually move my legs around. She's kind of like you got to see this guy. She's like laying with her head directly on the piano keyboard. So we will not actually be folding our legs, but usually I sit with my legs crossed like this, so that my lap kind of makes like a bowl, like a receptive area in my body, okay? And also, I'll tell you this, you can sun gaze on sunny days. You can also sun gaze on non-sunny days. So I used to live in Woodstock, New York. I actually did not get very much sunlight from my non-physical body there until I moved to California. I moved to Humboldt, which is famously cloudy and overcast. So there were many, many days there when I was like, I want sunlight so bad. So what I had to learn was that I was connecting not just with my physical eyes, but I was connecting with my inner apparatus, and I could go beyond the clouds. If there was like clouds up above dividing me, my physical eyes, from the actual sun, being able to see it, I started to learn that I could imagine myself kind of like in an airplane flying up above the level of the clouds and being able to still connect to the sun. So do not despair if you live in a cold climate. Not everybody can move to someplace where it's sunny and warm all the time. I know that's not practical. Do not despair if it's cloudy or if it's overcast or if there's geoengineering. And yes, my dears, yes, geoengineering exists specifically for this purpose of not only physically blocking out our eyeball connection to the sun and physically blocking out those rays from being able to reach the surface of Earth, but also blocking out consciousness rays. So all of this is like, it ain't even hard enough to have to try to awaken your pineal gland and climb up to these levels of being able to reascend to these levels of consciousness, but also they're making it even harder with the stupid freaking chemtrails. So we have to be like super strong and also very encouraging of one another that we can do this. I don't have my little crystal. I have like a little Herkimer diamond. It's not that little. It's actually pretty big. What I would also do when I lived in Humboldt was have my crystal in the sun on sunny days. And then on days when it was not sunny, I would literally put that crystal in my mouth when I did my activities, when I did my sun gazing, because I knew that it could store up light. So also, not every crystal is safe to put in your mouth, because some of them have molecules that you wouldn't want to go into your bloodstream. So a quartz crystal is inert, that is safe. A Herkimer diamond is safe. Use only suck on safe crystals. We safe crystalling is what we teach around here. All right, Chloe's got another question. She says, do you have to be standing on the ground? Good question. I live in a high rise and have been sun gazing on my balcony. No, you don't have to be standing on the ground. In exactly the same way, you can mentally envision yourself being up above the level of the clouds to touch on the sun and not have the intervening. Even if I'm sitting on a chair, even if I'm several stories up from the ground, I can imagine that the base of my spine is touching the ground, is even touching all the way to the core of Earth. So all of this is a mental exercise. And what we're really doing is transcending the physical. So at a certain point, which is, I'm telling you about that Bavarian mystic who was able to transcend the need for food. We are personally experiencing this transformation of going beyond the physical. So something says to our rational mind, you can't do that because your feet aren't actually touching the ground. But you can say, but I can imagine with my mind that I am touching the ground. And imagine doesn't mean do something fake. It means do something very, very real. So yeah, a big part of sun gazing is that we are an intermediary from the earth, the planet down here, to the sun that is over here. We're like a bridge. That's the big takeaway from today's lesson. We beautiful embodied humans and dogs and plants and everything, we are like a bridge between the planet and the stars. Okay, I'll get to more questions. Let me go through the basics of how to do sun gazing. How do I do this? So usually I eat regular food first because I don't do anything on an empty stomach, okay? And then I sit with my feet, legs crossed, blah, blah, Indian style, or like, you know, from the Far East, like a pretzel. And I do that because it kind of makes my lap feel like there's a bowl or a cauldron there that I can fill up with water, with energy. And then if it's a sunny day, and best sun gazing times are when the sun is rising or when the sun is setting. And I don't look directly at the sun. So right here where I live, it is very, very hot and sunny. So I have actually an awning over my porch that I mostly sit in the shade. So the physical sunlight is not even touching my face, it's not even touching my eyeballs. What I do is sit in a comfortable chair, and I sit with my back erect, and my spine is erect, and I imagine that I am touching my attenuos, my attention, to the sun. I imagine a very, very long tendril that is reaching out from inside of my mind and touching on the sun, and not just one sun or one star, but touching that entire network because it's all connected. And as I'm doing that imagining, I begin to breathe in. And the breathing in, I also should say, I place my tongue on the roof of my mouth behind my front teeth so that it creates like a full circuit, which I clearly cannot do that while I'm speaking here and flapping my moving mouth part, but when I'm in meditation, that's what I do. And when I breathe in, when I'm doing my sun gazing, that's like eating, you're breathing it in. I feel that light and energy going into my sinuses here, going all up my nose, going into my sinuses here, and kind of making a circle. I breathe it in, and then I feel it going down my throat. Sometimes I even swallow, and I feel it go down into my belly. At first, it fills up my lower belly down there, where my intestines are, where our food goes. And this, in the Far East, this is your hara, your aura. It's like your center of all of your life force energy. And then I breathe in again. And as I breathe in again, I feel that energy starting to fill up my tummy. Feel it filling up here, and I breathe in again. And I feel it filling up all of my lungs. And I really do feel inflated or expanded. And as I'm doing this, I'm not using my regular waking mind. I'm trying to be in a clear or meditative state and listening to whatever the sun might be telling me about, and also just being neutral in that sense. And then I'll breathe it in, usually like a couple more times, and I feel it filling up this area of my chest and this area of my throat. And then finally, I feel it filling up all the way up to here. And when I get all the way up to here, so if I am, and I'll draw this out for you too, when I'm touching on the sun, I actually feel it, instead of just going like right out the top of my head, I feel it go out the top of my head, in through the back of my head, and then out through the front of my face and hit the sun in kind of like a loop. We do a loop-de-loop, like an ankh. So if I go to the whiteboard, they'll go to my, here, go to share screen. Hold on. This one's a perfect one to show you. Here, get a color. So if this is the beautiful sun over here that's emitting sunlight, right? And I'm breathing it in. I start to breathe it in. It's going down into me here. So it's beginning to fill up these lower centers, fill up these middle centers, fill up these upper centers, fill. It gets up to this point here. And then what I feel it do is kind of go up through the top of my head, around the back, come in through the back of my head, and then reconnect to the sun. So it's making a loop-de-loop that is shaped very much like an ankh. An ankh is this ancient Egyptian symbol that looks almost like a cross. That is like that, this kind of loop-de-loop. So I sometimes call it making an ankh, but you could just think of it as a loop-de-loop on that. So, okay, how do you know you're doing it right? So first of all, I know that I'm on target with the sun, connecting my inner eye to the sun. When I actually see, it looks to me like a rainbow bullseye. And I have a little sketch of it. I just don't know exactly which. It's saved on a hard drive somewhere. I don't know where it is. Bear with me. Thank you for understanding. But yes, when I'm tuned in to the sun, I know that I'm in tune because I actually see radiating circles of colored light that tell me that I'm in the right way. And I see them not with my physical eyes, I see it with my inner eye, with the same eye that I use to see all of the, shapes and colors that I put into my paintings. So you will know you're on target when you see that type of, radiating rainbow energy. It's like looking down a tunnel, and it's not with my physical eyes. So I know that there are various different teachings about this, that some people say you should stare with your physical eyes. You can stare for a few moments at a time and then gradually increase it. Some Aikido masters do this. I teach safe sun gazing, and I really believe in this, and I practice this myself. You can do it with your eyelids totally closed. You can do it with a hat over your eye. You can do it inside with your windows completely drawn so that you're not getting any light. It's not about physical light, even though the physical light is present in the world. It is about connecting your attention to the non-physical aspect of consciousness that is coming from the sun. And that is how you get energy in your energetic bank account. So you know you're doing it right when you see that target, like that bullseye. Also, I feel immediately uplifted. Like if I'm having any feelings of emotional perturbation, I mean, I'm a pretty uplifted person, but sometimes I feel angry or upset or whatever, and I certainly read the news and feel all of those things too. When I get paid, when I get $500 of sunlight from the sun, I feel like, oh, I feel so much better. Like I feel cool. I feel good. Like life is good. Life is fantastic. And the more that I do it and the more consistently that I do it, the more that I feel like, yeah, it's a feeling of being energized, of being invigorated. And also, I personally get a lot of inspiration in terms of what I want to paint, what I want to play in terms of music, and what I want to speak about when I do a presentation like, on today's webinar. This is where I get my ideas from. I very regularly sun gaze, and this morning I do my sun gazing, sitting in my comfortable chair, and I'm like, what do I want to say? How do I want to present this information when I'm coming on this video? So, when I come on these videos, I'm Aurora talking to you with my moving mouth parts, and I'm also sharing ideas and concepts that I get directly from the sun. The sun is like, tell everybody about this, tell everybody that. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. I take my little notes. I want to tell about this, about this, about this. And I'm having a conversation with the sun. In fact, that's what I would say sometimes when my neighbors would see me in Woodstock. We had a communal backyard, and they'd see me sitting out there, sun gazing, whatever, come along, have a talk. They're like, I'd love to talk with you, but I'm having a conversation with the sun. Like, give me 5 minutes. And yes, I find it very inspiring in terms of creativity. So when I lived places where it was either dark in the wintertime or very overcast, or I didn't have access to a lot of sunlight, I found it a lot more difficult to have energy for athleticism, energy for making new projects. Like I could still play songs that I already knew, but coming up with new songs was hard, innovating new things. So to innovate new things, I really find it's necessary to have a connection to the sun. And then also, like, let's say, if I have $500 worth of sunlight that I just, ingested from sun gazing, I want to spend it, like I told you, spend your money wisely on music that I actually want to play. Like I don't want to write some stupid thing. I want to spend my energy on something that really matters. Like put your energy into projects, buy worthy, like if you're going to buy a shirt or shoes, like buy a good pair of shoes. Don't buy cheap shoes. Buy real leather shoes that will last you a long amount of time. Because we're talking about concepts. If you're going to get some direct mind food from the sun, get concepts that are truly nourishing. Like if you get real leather shoes, they last for a long time and they go with everything. Cowboy boots. Cowboy boots go with everything, and they're made of real leather and they will last for a long time. That is worth investing in. So look for concepts that are universal concepts that will apply not just merely to this time and place, but to other experiences that you might also have either concurrently or in another whatever. So, okay, wait. More to questions over here. Pedro says, that's why you told me we can put a Merkaba and encrypt photons. Yes, exactly right. Okay, so that when we're doing Merkaba on an advanced level, because it's like keeping a lot of things going at one time. First, just focus on your own body, focus on your own cellular structure. And there's all sorts of photons that are coming to us on the photon network. We can put Merkabas around every single little photon that's coming to you, and then that you are sending out to other people. Pedro asked a wonderful question. Where do we store the light? In our light body. He's like, what's going on here? So, okay, when you eat lots and lots of wonderful physical calories, where do you store your energy? Well, that's easy. I store it in my arm. I store it in my liver. I store it on my butt. I store it every place. I store it in my body. So the energy is stored as light in your light body. It is consciousness, it is life force, it is vitality. So I'm explaining all this as ingesting light through here. In the Far East, in a lot of these practices, it is described as breathing in chi or prana. So to me, I see it as light. I see the rainbow colors and I'm breathing in the light and it's coming into me. Other practitioners and other schools of thought describe this as breathing in chi, life force, prana. There are certain circular breathing exercises that I do. So the breathing is part of it. All I can tell you is like, you feel it. You feel it coming into you. I know that I'm also successful. Sometimes I actually have a taste in my mouth that it tastes like something delicious, like coconut pudding. And sometimes I actually feel when I'm swallowing, like I'm swallowing light, like it has a substance to it that is actually coming inside of me. So when we transform from our domesticated forms into our truly adult, wild, undomesticated forms, what we are doing is not just eating plain old boring light, like, oh, honey, what did you have for breakfast? I ate some photons, and then I went off. Like it's the most boring, like plain toast, like dry toast. It's not like dry toast. It's not like that at all. Because eating photons to your sensation, your sensorium, stimulating that part of you, can be like eating chocolate cake, can be like eating coconut pudding, can be like the most divine, wonderful thing, and that's what our experience is supposed to be like. So we're not supposed to have a replicator, like on Star Trek, where you ask for a cup of hot tea or some chocolate cake from the replicator and press the right buttons and then magically, woo, puts molecules together and you eat it. That's not what we're supposed to have. We are not supposed to have any intermediaries. You don't need a replicator as your intermediary. You don't need plants and chloroplasts as an intermediary. Plants are wonderful. I am not condescending to plants, but we need them at this level because we are not yet ready to jump off the surface of the planet. When you're ready to jump off the surface of the planet, plants tie us to the planet. I have a beautiful garden. It's where I grow my cannabis. When I go into space, I will not need to grow my cannabis garden and drink my wonderful green cannabis juice. I will not have to do that. We will not require plants to be an intermediary for us to get all the nutrition that we need. You fly from star to star, getting all the energy that you need to move by being connected to all of the stars. That is truly becoming mature enough and refined enough in the cosmos to be able to, you're like ready to get your driver's license. You're ready to get off the surface of your planet and go where you need to go. So Pedro wanted to know if there's a particular part of the body that stores up the light like a battery. No, there's not one particular part of the body. Your entire body gets turned up. Imagine if you were like a very dim picture of yourself, and then little by little you turn up the light. It's like, oh, now we can see more of you, turn up the light, and then more of you, more of you, more of you. And then at a certain point, you have lots and lots of light in you. It's like you yourself are shining like a spotlight. Spoiler alert. We are all stars. We are all stars. We are not like stars in Hollywood. That's not what I'm talking about. We are all literal stars. And the way that we reclaim that from our present domesticated state is you got to eat a lot of light. Eat a lot of light, and that naturally turns up your amplitude, as opposed to taking a molecule, naturally occurring or otherwise, and turning up the volume in an artificial way. Chloe says, is agreeing with me, totally, yes, I see the sun in the same way. It sometimes also moves like a spiral, and other times see a prismatic rainbow. Nice to know. Yes, and these are like internal perceptions. So this is another big one. The star is alive, the sun is alive, and what we're seeing is much more than just chemical reactions and what science and NASA and space agencies define is going on in the stars. So we're developing a rapport, just like you have rapport between musicians and between the tree and the sun have a rapport to be able to build an apple. You start developing a rapport with the sun, except guess what? You're not just building an apple, you're building you. You are building your non-physical or higher dimensional light body version of self. And that is your real spaceship. That's your starship. That's what you use to fly around in. And you could think of it as your own private space pod where you're just one person flying along in your own space pod. And you can also understand like you can be connected to many, many other individual space pods, and you're like a fleet or like a multicellular organism, which is what we are becoming. Salu says, I would imagine that it would be a very profound transformative sensation that you experience when practicing this. It absolutely is. I'm agreeing. She says, and not just some passing breeze, so to speak. Yes. So eating light is metamorphosis itself. It is our birthright. It's what we're supposed to do. It's who we really are. In the Bible, and I'm not a biblical literalist, it talks very beautifully or describes beautifully the idea of the Garden of Eden, a time when no one had to eat anybody else in order to stay alive. All of the animals were unique, and all of the animals were named, and everybody's friends with everybody. It's like, oh, you're you. I don't have to eat you. Like, oh, Mr. Pig, you're Mr. Pig. I don't have to eat you, and you don't have to eat me. And that it was a completely different way of looking at organisms and interacting with organisms. That is what we are supposed to be experiencing. Like I use that as a mythological, template. That's what we're supposed to experience. We are not supposed to have to, and I understand where veganism and vegetarianism comes from a deep vestigial memory that people have of not wanting to have to eat other living creatures. But avocados are alive. Seeds are alive. Legumes are alive. Everything is alive. Vegetables are alive. Fruits are alive. Worms are alive. If you're eating fermented anything, you're eating sauerkraut, you are eating microbes. The microbes eat the food and you eat the microbes. Like there is no way to jump off this cyclical wheel of thing eats thing, eats thing, eats thing in order to stay alive until or unless you do the thing like what Therese von Neumann did. You change your program. So in order for us to be changing our program and become nothing but pure light eaters, we need to transform our belief system and also replumb the body itself. Because it's not just that our minds or perceptions were changed in human degradation, in the domestication process, our physical bodies were also changed and transformed. So don't try to just jump directly into it being like, I'm going to save hundreds of dollars every week on my grocery bill and I'm no longer eating any physical food and I'm just going to sun gaze all the time. Like literally, guys, I'm telling you, I joke, I call myself, I'm a hybrid, like a hybrid car. It uses gas, but it also can, do the electric vehicle thing. That is exactly what I am like at this point. Hold on, drinking juice. Yeah, I've had to love myself in this body. Even though I wanted to eat nothing but pure light when I first came here, I had to love or accept myself and my level of development. And that level of development is not just about who I am as a person, because I want you all to know you're all good enough. It's not like, oh, when I'm finally a perfect divine being, then I'll eat nothing but pure light and I feel so guilty about eating plants and animals. No, each one of us, we are on this journey. We're exactly in the place where we're supposed to be. Please love yourself and allow yourself to develop and not set arbitrary goals like on June 15th of the year 2025, I will be eating nothing but pure sunlight. And I would think, no, it doesn't work like that. What we need to do is understand that our inner development is happening concurrently along with many, many other events. And those other events are part of the symphony of life. So we change and we transform on a biological and genetic level, and events of reality change and transform, and this whole thing works together, let's say synergistically or as a whole. So you can't just be like, oh, look, it's time for me to stop buying groceries for my own personal convenience. It's not about that. It's about you as a musician connected to the rest of the symphony of life. So please love yourself completely. And also one of the best practices, if you want to really accelerate your inner development, sun gazing, and also whenever you're eating physical food, recognize that you're eating solidified light, be it plants or be it animals or whatever it is. You recognize that you're eating light. I'm eating a light program right now. I salute all of the plants and all the vegetables and all the fruits that had a rapport, made a song with the sun, and that distilled their song and melody into the juice that I'm drinking right now. So that is part of the transformation of the mind, that in order to do this as individuals and as a collective, we need to transform our perception, our thought, just like when I was teaching you about the Merkaba or about moving from one dimension into another dimension, higher dimensional state. A lot of it is a change in perception. We're rearranging what we're seeing, we're reinterpreting what we're seeing. It's not like we're adding, removing something. We're doing it by changing our perception. Yes, Alu was saying the sun food practice, that this is very profound. It is very profound. And because we eat all the time and we need to eat in order to sustain ourselves, it's a really good opportunity for this practice that we can do it. There are many opportunities all throughout the day in order to do it. So yes, when you're actually eating, feeling and tasting the textures of everything that you're eating and recognizing that that is a program, have a rapport with the sun, send that information back to the sun, think about the light and the photons that came into the food that you're ingesting. And then also when you're doing this sun gazing with the sun is like the great composer. The sun will tell you, or the great conductor will tell you, like, you need to do this. Here's vital nutrients for you. Like, it's a personalized diet. The sun is your nutritionist. The sun will give you the personalized everything that you need for you. So it's not like I need to tell you, oh, you need this information. Oh, you need this information. Once you tune into the sun will give you all the vitamins, all the information, everything that you need in exactly the right order. So, one of the other things I wanted to say in showing you these pictures, the intersection point between these two aspects of self. Here, go back to these pictures. Every single one of these things, one of the most crucial things to recognize, get in the color so you can see, right where I'm making that X at the center, this is an intersection point between two chakras. The one that is your brow chakra that faces out through your front of your face, and then the one that comes in through the top of your head, that is guidance from higher dimensional, less dense realms. That experience of having a physically embodied pineal gland in the center of your head, where I made that little square, that is the intersection of these two aspects of higher dimensional self. Your own perception, your own attention, your own imagination, coupled with, literally like a couple, like a happy, positive, healthy relationship with guidance from a higher dimensional, less dense realm. That's the stars. So that's what this is all about. Truly creating this, like you're a musician working with a composer, working with the symphony, working within this whole thing. So yes, I can tell you that that's the direction that we are all moving, to be nothing but light eaters, to be nothing but chronic breathers, and we do not need to ever kill anything, and we're not quite at that point yet. So please love each one of us, accept each one of us, accept yourself on the journey, and also knowing that we're actually getting someplace with all this. These are not mere abstract exercises. It's like you're doing exercises, you're like doing these exercises for a purpose, and they actually do lead each one of us somewhere. So if there are any more questions about this particular level 1 stuff, I'll get to them. If not, I'll do a slightly shorter presentation on level 2, because I did do a lot from this for right now. So, okay, then I'm going to complete level 1 for right now. As always, I appreciate everyone who is enrolled, and I will encourage and invite all people who are watching this. If you're interested, please enroll. And I always include the enrollment links in the video description. Check out the links, because there are lessons enabled for free preview when you scroll all the way down, and so you can get an idea. It's an interactive whiteboard where I do a lot less of you seeing my face. You hear my voice and you see a lot more diagrams and understand things on that level. All of the weekly presentations here have recorded lessons. That information relates to what I presented here, and it really does flesh it out and make a lot more sense. And not all just about money. Thank you if you have money. If you could pay for it, that's great. And if not, contact me via private message or whatever, because I often give tuition scholarships for people that are interested and don't have a lot of money. So don't let that be the deciding factor. So thank you very much, and I'll move on to level 2.